Hey everyone, welcome back. It's time for another deep dive, and today we're tackling something that I know a lot of people have strong feelings about personal finance.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things that can feel super overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like, where do you even begin?
Exactly. That's why we asked you guys to send in some excerpts from a book that's been getting a lot of buzz, The One-Page Financial Plan by Carl Richards. And let me tell you, this book is all about simplifying things, making it feel actually doable.
Right, and what I love is that it's written by someone who's been there,
Mhm.
done that. Carl Richards is a certified financial planner.
Oh, he's not just some stuffy financial guru.
Not at all.
Yeah.
He's actually really upfront about his own money mistakes. Like, he even lost his house at one point.
Yeah, that definitely caught my attention too. It makes the whole thing feel way more relatable. Like, okay, even the pros screw up sometimes.
So it happens to the best of us.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it's what you learn from those experiences, right?
Ab-
So speaking of learning, there's this stat in the book that just blew my mind. A 2013 study found that the average working household has almost no retirement savings, like zero.
Yeah, that's uh, that's a pretty sobering thought, isn't
It's
it?
like a giant wake-up call. But you know what I appreciate about the book is that it doesn't dwell on the doom and gloom. It's actually really positive. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, it's never too late to start. Even small steps can make a huge difference.
Totally. And one of the things that really resonated with me was how much the book emphasizes the importance of discovery. Like, before you even get into budgets or spreadsheets, it's all about figuring out what's truly important to you.
Yes, that was huge for me too. It's not just about the numbers. It's about your values,
Yeah.
your goals, your dreams.
Exactly. Like, what do you actually want your money to do for you?
And they have this amazing story in the book about this couple, both successful professionals working like crazy, but they hadn't really stopped to ask themselves what they were working towards.
Oh, I remember that story. It was so powerful.
Right, they were just on this hamster wheel of work and spend and work and spend.
Until they did this values exercise from the book and had this massive realization.
It was a light bulb moment.
Totally.
Yeah.
They realized they both really wanted to start a family.
Yeah.
But their current lifestyle, like all the hours they were working, just wasn't conducive to that.
At all. It was like they finally woke up and were like, wait, what are we doing?
And that's where the whole one-page plan idea comes in.
Yeah.
It's not about creating this complex financial document. It's about getting those core values down on paper so they can guide all your financial decisions.
It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, like just trying to survive, that we forget to ask those big questions.
The why behind the what
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why is money important to me? What do I actually want to do with it?
might sound kind of cheesy,
Yeah.
but those are some powerful questions.
They really are. And the book acknowledges that having those conversations, especially with a partner or family, can be tricky.
Oh, yeah. Money can be such a loaded topic.
Right. So they have a whole section on how to make those money conversations more productive and less stressful.
Which is so important, because if you can't communicate effectively about money, it's going to create all sorts of problems down the line.
Totally. And what's really cool is that the book doesn't just focus on money in the traditional sense. It also talks about human capital.
Human capital.
Hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's the idea that your skills, your
Yeah.
time, your network, these are all assets that you need to manage effectively too.
I love that, because you could be making a ton of money but be completely miserable and burnt out and have no time for the things that actually matter.
Exactly. It's about looking at the whole picture. Your financial capital, A&D, your human capital.
Right. It's about finding that balance.
And another thing that really resonated with me was the emphasis on focusing on what you can control. Because let's face it, there's a lot about the financial world that we can't control.
Like the stock market.
The economy, global events, all of that.
Right. It can feel really overwhelming.
Totally. And I loved the story about how Carl Richards himself dealt with the 2008 financial crisis. He talks about being completely freaked out by all the uncertainty.
Yeah. But he found this really interesting way to cope.
He literally focused on his breath.
It's simple as that.
It sounds so basic, but in that moment, it was the one thing he could actually control.
And from there, he was able to start making more rational decisions.
It's a great reminder that even when everything feels like it's falling apart, we always have some agency.
Oh,
We can always choose how we respond to the situation.
so true. And that's a really empowering thought, I think.
Definitely. So we've talked about the importance of values and goals and finding that sense of control. But how do we actually put all this into practice? Like, how do we start making smarter decisions about our money?
Well, that's where the nitty-gritty of budgeting and saving and investing comes in.
And I know those words can make some people want to run for the hills, but trust me, this book makes it all feel way less scary and way more doable.
Absolutely.
Oh,
It's all about taking things one step at a time.
so shall we dive into the practical stuff, Ned?
Let's do it.
All right, so we've talked about values and goals and finding that sense of control. But now let's get into the nitty gritty. Like, how do we actually manage this thing called money,
The million-dollar question.
right? And I know for a lot of people, this is where things start to feel a little bit, well, scary.
Yeah, budgeting. It's not exactly the most exciting topic.
Not really.
Yeah.
But the book doesn't frame it as this, like, restrictive, punishing thing. It's more about awareness.
I like that. Awareness instead of deprivation.
Exactly. It's about understanding where your money is actually going, so you can make conscious choices about how you want to spend it.
It's like shining a light on your spending habits.
Totally. And they tell this great story in the book about this couple who tracked their spending for a month. And they were totally shocked by how much they were spending on food.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. They were horrified at first.
Right. But then they realized, you know what? For their lifestyle, for their priorities, it actually made sense.
They loved to cook. They entertained a lot. Food was a big part of their social life.
Exactly. So they were like, okay, we're cool with allocating a bigger chunk of our budget to this.
It was a conscious choice,
Hmm.
not just mindless spending.
Which is the whole point, right?
Yeah.
It's not about judging yourself. It's about aligning your spending with your values.
If you're spending a lot on something that's truly important to you, then that's fine.
But you need to be aware of it and make that choice intentionally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book has some really practical tips on how to actually create a budget that works for you, like breaking down your spending into categories, figuring out your fixed expenses, automating payments wherever possible.
They even talk about this thing called a spending cleanse. Have you ever heard of that?
A spending cleanse.
Yeah.
It's like hitting the reset button on your spending habits.
Right. Exactly. It's like going on a super strict diet for your wallet.
For a set period of time, like a week or a month, you basically cut out all non-essential spending.
Could be a little intense, but I bet it would be super eye-opening.
Definitely. Makes you realize how much you can actually live without.
And then, of course, there's the S word, saving.
Yeah. Which can feel like a Herculean task for some people, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck.
Totally. But again, the book starts with the why. Like, what are you saving for? Having a clear goal in mind can make a huge difference in terms of motivation.
Absolutely. Whether it's a down payment on a house, a dream vacation, early retirement, whatever it is, having that goal front and center makes it so much easier to stay disciplined.
And they have this fun little trick called the 72-hour test.
Oh, yeah. I love that one.
So anytime you're tempted to make a non-essential purchase, you wait 72 hours before buying it.
It's such a simple but effective way to avoid impulse purchases.
Right, because how often do we buy something and then later we're like, why did I do that?
All the time.
But sometimes it does take more than just a clever trick, right?
True. There might be times when you need to make some real sacrifices to reach your bigger financial goals.
Like cutting back on eating out or downsizing your apartment or saying no to that fancy vacation.
It's not always easy, but it's about making those choices with your long-term goals in mind.
Okay, so we've talked about values, budgeting, saving. Now let's get to the part that some people might be dreading, investing.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know it can seem intimidating, especially with all the jargon and the ups and downs of the market.
It's like a whole other language sometimes.
But what I appreciate about the book is that it demystifies investing. It's not about getting rich quick or picking hot stocks. It's about taking a long-term, evidence-based approach.
They even call the whole world of stock picking and market timing the carnival, something to avoid.
Which is funny because Carl Richards himself admits to losing money on a hot stock tip early in his career.
Even the pros get caught up in the hype sometimes.
Exactly, which is why having a plan is so important. And interestingly, this section of the book actually starts with things that come before investing, like insurance.
Makes sense. Before you start thinking about growing your money, you need to make sure you're protected.
Right. It's about building a solid foundation.
They have a really simple rule of thumb for life insurance. If someone depends on you financially, you probably need it.
And they even provide a framework for calculating how much life insurance you actually need based on potential income loss. No need to overspend on something you hopefully won't have to use.
Exactly. Then they delve into debt, a topic that can be really charged emotionally.
Oh yeah, debt can definitely be a loaded word.
They ask the question, can debt ever be a good investment?
And surprisingly, they say yes. But it really depends on the situation.
There's that story in the book about the guy who was diligently paying down his mortgage
Yeah.
while his partner was making all these risky real estate investments.
And it seemed like the partner was winning right up until the market crashed.
Ouch.
It's a good reminder that leverage can be a powerful tool, but also a dangerous one.
Totally. The book provides a framework for assessing those decisions thoughtfully, not just based on emotion or FOMO.
Right. So after all of that, we finally get to the actual investing part. And their approach is so refreshing. They advocate for the science of investing, not the hype.
It's about looking at long-term data and historical trends, not chasing the latest fad or trying to time the market.
Their three core principles are diversify, keep costs low, and understand the risk-reward relationship. What do you think is the most important of those?
That's tough. They're all so important. But I'd say diversification is key. It's the idea of not putting all your eggs in one basket. You want to spread your investments across different asset classes, industries, even geographic regions.
Right. So if one part of your portfolio is doing poorly, hopefully another part is doing well.
Exactly. It's about managing risk.
And keeping costs low is super important too. You don't want fees eating away at your returns over time.
Right. Choosing low-cost index funds can be a great way to do that.
And then there's that risk-reward relationship. Higher potential returns usually come with higher risk.
It's about finding a balance that aligns with your individual goals and how much risk you're comfortable taking.
Some people are okay with a little more volatility. Others prefer to play it safe.
Exactly. And what I love about the book is that it doesn't give you a one-size-fits-all portfolio. They walk through different scenarios based on people's goals, showing how these principles apply in different situations.
It's not about copying someone else's strategy. It's about understanding the thinking behind it, so you can apply it to your own life.
Right. And speaking of applying it to your own life, they talk about the importance of rebalancing.
Rebalancing. Can you explain what that is and why it's so crucial?
Sure, rebalancing is basically about periodically adjusting your portfolio to maintain your desired asset allocation. Over time, as certain investments perform better than others, your portfolio can drift away from your original plan.
So it's like making sure your investments are still aligned with your risk tolerance and your goals.
Exactly. It can be emotionally tough to sell investments that have been doing well, but mathematically, it's a sound practice for managing risk and staying on track.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground values. Budgeting, saving, investing. It's like the whole personal finance enchilada.
The whole shebang.
But what I've realized is that making a plan is only half the battle, right?
Oh, yeah. The real challenge is sticking to it.
Especially when emotions get involved.
Because, let's face it, we're not always the most rational creatures when it comes to money.
Especially when we see those numbers going up and down. It's like our brains just short circuit.
The book talks about how we're basically wired to buy high and sell low, even though we know that's the worst thing to do.
It's like our instincts are working against us. So how do we overcome that?
Well, Richards has some really interesting strategies.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things he emphasizes is finding a financial advisor you really trust.
Someone you can actually talk to openly and honestly.
Yeah. And he even compares finding the right advisor to like stumbling upon a secret society.
Which I thought was such a brilliant analogy. It's like these amazing advisors are out there, but they're not the ones shouting from the rooftops or making all these crazy promises.
They're more like the quiet ninjas of the financial world.
I love that. The quiet ninjas.
They're more focused on building long-term relationships and putting their clients' interests first.
And the book actually gives some great advice on how to find one of these ninjas, like asking about their fee structure, their investment philosophy, whether they have any conflicts of interest.
A good advisor will be totally transparent and happy to answer all your questions. It's like finding a doctor you trust.
You want someone who's going to listen to you and explain things clearly without all the jargon.
Right, someone who's on your team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so once you've found your trusted ninja, what are some other strategies for staying on track with your financial plan?
Well, we talked about automation earlier, but it's worth mentioning again here. Setting up automatic contributions to your savings and investment accounts can be huge.
It's like paying yourself first.
Exactly. You make those good choices the default.
And then there's this idea of reflecting on past financial mistakes.
Not to beat yourself up.
No, but to learn from them.
It's about recognizing patterns in your behavior. Like, do you tend to panic and sell when the market dips?
Yeah.
Or do you get FOMO and buy into things that are already overpriced?
Right. It's all about building that self-awareness so you can make better decisions in the future.
Exactly.
And ultimately, the book reminds us that the goal of all of this isn't to obsess over money.
It's to free yourself from that worry and stress.
so you can focus on the things that truly matter.
Your relationships,
Yeah.
your passions, your purpose.
And I think that's such a powerful message. Personal finance doesn't have to be scary or overwhelming. It's about making conscious choices that are aligned with who you are and what you want out of life.
It's about taking control of your money so it doesn't control you.
So well said. So there you have it, folks. Another deep dive complete.
Hope you enjoyed the ride.
As always, we want to thank you for listening and for sending in your questions and comments.
Keep them coming.
We love hearing from you. And remember, this is just the beginning. The journey to financial well-being is ongoing. But with the right tools and mindset, you can absolutely achieve your goals and create a life you love.
Cheers to that.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.